would anyone like to offer a definition of what they think augmented reality is? Or shall I, do you want to just leave it to me to do in the presentation? No? Go on, yeah, go on.
It's kind of like a heads-up display. It's a layer over the top of reality, giving you more information about some kind of place than you would be able to get.
Yeah, great. Okay, I looked on Wikipedia to find what I thought would be a nice, concise, well thought through definition, and it's sort of right, but it was very confusing. I think the gentleman in the audience gave a much better sort of description, to be honest. But I think this is probably what's maybe the sort of generally accepted sort of view, is that it's like real-world images blended, with computer-generated images in real time. That's this sort of heads-up display. Now, the question is, does it have to be real time? And that's, on these applications also augmented reality. I mean, these are physical things. This is a poster. This is a product. Here's a book. And those physical items are being augmented with digital content through things like visual search or barcode scanning. So really, the wider accepted view is that the traditional sort of view of augmented reality is it's real-time heads-up display, but actually the wider view is it's anywhere where the physical environment becomes interactive and you can access digital content through different applications. So that's sort of what AR is. And I'm not going to go into this in any detail, but essentially this is all about after the desktop, what happens. So, until about 5-10 years ago, the traditional way we access our computers on a desktop with a screen and a keyboard. Obviously, mobile technology has transformed that very significantly in the last sort of 5 years. And as you imagine the mobile device shrinking and almost disappearing, the way we interact with computers is changing fundamentally. Okay. So there's a whole bunch of different concepts here, of which augmented reality is one, which will sort of define the way that we interact with computers in the future. So, just a little bit about technology. I mean, how do you link the physical world to the sort of digital overlay that you're going to provide? And there are really two fundamental technologies used, and sometimes used in combination. So the first is what we call geolocation-based AR. So that's where you are using the compass and the GPS or positioning system within the phone to essentially be able to work out where you are relative to points of interest in the world. So that's using the compass and GPS. The other is vision-based AR, where you're actually using the camera of the device to recognise what is actually in front of you, and then providing content that's related to that particular object that you've recognised. So these are two fundamentally different technologies, as I say, often used in combination. So this is really looking at the advantages and disadvantages of both approaches. And when you're thinking about deploying an AR application, you probably want to start thinking about which of these technologies is appropriate for your particular application. So geolocation uses phone's GPS and compass. It's really simple. That technology is built into most smartphones today. And if you've got points of interest, I mean, you basically just need to know the position of that item, that place in the world, and you can render content about it. The limitations is it's quite poor accuracy. So, I mean, GPS, you'll know, doesn't work to a great level of accuracy, particularly in sort of built-up environments. It's world-centric, so you can't follow things. So this only works when your place of interest is a fixed location in the world with a fixed position. And of course you can't get GPS in lots of places, so it doesn't typically work very well indoors. But there's a number of companies who've developed platforms for providing AR, which we'll talk about in a minute. And then vision-based AR, I mean, really this is using image-based tracking and recognition. The disadvantage is you now need to have some sort of model, sort of visual model of everything that you want the system to understand. And actually, the matching technology is very complex and expensive. And in fact, even the state of the art, we're not able to recognise everything today. We can recognise things like products very easily with good technology, but recognising everything is still beyond the realms of the technology. So there's a lot of technical development and risk in this at the moment. The advantage is very, very high accuracy. So if you're in front of something that's recognised, you know exactly where it is, and you can render AR content onto that very precisely. It's object-centric, so if that's an object and it's in a different place, the system still recognises it and it still works with it in a different place. And it works indoors and outdoors. Quite an interesting point is that you're also measuring the environment. In a way, the geolocation-based AR is sort of dumb. It doesn't actually know anything about the environment around it. With visual-based AR, you're actually measuring the environment, so you can start to do some really neat tricks. For example, you can be measuring the lighting in the scene and start to then shade any sort of 3D graphics you might be displaying appropriately, so it actually looks and blends in with the environment. So you can produce some really good content. I mean, I would be cautious about using GPS technology in very small environments, very small locations, and particularly indoors, for the reasons I pointed out before. The idea of virtual installation. So we've not really talked a lot about content. You know, what's the content that you view through AR? It can be anything. It can be just text, the location of a place, or it could be a three-dimensional model. It could be an animation. You know, it's a platform where any of these types of content, or audio, can be presented. So you can essentially augment a physical location with lots of additional content. And games might be relevant to your business. So these are just some ideas that you might be thinking about. And then, you know, if you've got an idea, you know, how do you build it? What do you do? How do you create an AR application? You know, how do you make your idea real? And I guess what I'm trying to show here is that there's a sort of trend, like in the early days, and to a significant extent today, you know, to have AR meant developing a custom application from the ground up. And clearly that's a big undertaking and expensive and needs experts. What's happened maybe in the last few years is there's been some software tools made available so that you know, you're not building applications from the ground up. You know, if you've got a good developer who knows how to use the tools, they can get tools off the shelf and quickly do things like visual tracking or deal with GPS and all that type of good stuff. And then the really exciting thing that happened maybe in the last probably 2 years is this idea of really learning what we learned from the internet, which was, you know, you need a standard browser that can present a standard content, so that the content providers aren't developers. They have to be developing, you have to write software. And imagine if every web page required someone to write code, you know, the web never would have scaled the way it has today. So what we're seeing now are augmented reality browsers, and there's a few companies in that space who allow you to create content and publish it to their browser platform. And we'll talk about that on the next slide, in a couple of slides' time. And then really, these are probably the key questions to think about when you think about deploying some augmented reality. So, you know, what platform are you talking about? Are you talking about a smartphone? You know, are you thinking, you know, do you have a big budget and you want to bring out a game? You know, is that relevant to your business? You know, maybe some sort of license deal with a big brand. You know, is it a webcam? You know, maybe is someone at your location, or is this maybe something like a teaser to get someone to come and visit your location? So they could be on the other side of the world, and through a webcam application can be inspired to come and visit you through some augmented reality through the webcam. You know, or is it something bespoke? Is it, you know, do you run a museum and you're going to put bespoke equipment in there? You know, maybe specialist equipment with glasses, and you know, you've got some capital expenditure that you're prepared to pay. You know, what technology? We talked a little bit about geolocation and vision based. How does that apply to your idea? And you know, are you looking to develop an application from the ground up, or are you wanting to publish in one of these new browsers? Yeah, and it's still very much developing. So there's technology out there that works today, but this is fast moving and it's going to develop very quickly. You know, the smartphone is a great platform, and it's really it's really created the opportunity for AR to scale to a mass market. I mean, those platforms like Layer have, you know, tens of millions of users now. I mean, they're spread around the world, but there's a reasonable audience for these apps now. You know, this is definitely a positive trend, moving away from AR being all about developing applications to be able to publish content. That's a big change that's going to make it scale. And you know, I think there's opportunities here for tourism. You need to use your imagination and sort of try and work out how you make that real. And I think that's me.